Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 63rd episode of Let's Talk Inclusion. I'm your host, Manobina Chakraborty. We have a fantastic discussion lined up for you today with our guests, Jayne Nadarajoo and Caroline Hill, who are experts in the fields of literacy and education, especially focusing on neurodiversity inclusion. So let's start by having them introduce themselves. Hi, Jayne. So,
Hello, everyone.
Jane is here. Jane was here the week before last, Jane. I think a
Yes,
couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So could you please tell us a bit about your background and work, please?
thank you for the opportunity. The last time I joined you was from Madrid when I was starting my Camino walk. And now that's done and I highly recommend it. And I'm back home in Singapore. I am a social entrepreneur as well as an educator. So I run a social enterprise together with my husband, and we support neurodivergence, age 3 years old to 30 years old in Singapore. And we have developed a wonderful program to help students transition to independent living, vocational training, as well as further education.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for coming, Jane. And Caroline is an integral part of I for Inclusion, and I have lost count. How many times have you been to this show? I have lost count, Caroline. 10? Okay. So,
No, only six.
could you please tell our viewers about your work and your recent works as well?
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline from the UK, and my specialism is in literacy and numeracy for those with special educational needs, especially those with neurodiversity. I've also recently become an author of children's books with regards to building the importance of reading and literacy and vocabulary, but you'll learn more about that as we go on this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you're listening in the world. So my background is in special educational needs, assistant head in Senko in some UK secondary schools, but also my heart is really for young people and becoming lifelong learners.
That's great. I have your book with me. Here
Great!
it is.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So there are many viewers actually, and they are introducing themselves. Let me just show their names here first. All right. So thank you very much, Caroline and Jane, for taking out time from your busy schedule and to be here today. So it will be, Caroline, it will be lovely if you read a few lines for us from your book at some point of today's discussion. But before that, I have some questions for both of you. So shall we start with the questions?
Certainly.
Uh,
Yeah,
I-
sure.
Reading aloud and being read to are crucial for developing literacy skills in children, as all of us, as we know, all of us know. So, what is your opinion about it, Jane and Caroline? I would like to know from both of you.
Um, I'm happy to go first. I'm sure
Go ahead.
Caroline has a lot more to say as an author. I'm a teacher, so I'm going to kind of use from the teacher parent perspective. I think it's a connection. For me, I think it's how we connect with children through stories and books. There's obviously many opportunities for learning, but the best I think is a social emotional. Most times as a teacher, when you're reading, you'll find someone sitting next to you, touching you, looking avidly at you, and I feel like that is an amazing opportunity for you to connect with children, to give them the sense of safety and security. And for parents who are reading to kids before they go to bed, it's also when they tell you their fears, their aspirations, their dreams, right? I think it is just an amazing opportunity to not only create a love for language, a love for reading, but also to communicate and get feedback from them. Um, and through that, extend a lot of the literacy skills as well as their cognitive skills. So it depends whether you're doing it at school where you're winding them up to think and to share, or where you're reading at home when you're winding them down for bed. You actually get the best of both. That's my view on it.
Yeah,
Oh,
very
I totally agree with that, Jayne. And for me, it's about, like you say, relationship and those early interactions between parent, carer, and young person, and joy and that excitement to know more, to want to pick things out, to find pictures, to actually start observing and to question and to enjoy that interaction, feeling the warmth of mum or dad or carer sat next to them, snuggled up all nice and warm, and knowing that whatever they're learning, whatever story they're hearing, is going to help them lifelong. It will help them with their memory. It will help them with their recall. It will help them with feeling safe and secure. It will help them with language and vocabulary and broadening. It will help them with understanding that we speak through our bodies, we speak through facial expressions, we speak through the clothes that we wear or what we see. And so just looking at a picture book without any words brings all these skills forth, so that early childhood reading for me is so imperative to learning full stop, and to feeling safe in the environment that you're in, and to listen, those skills of listening and enjoying and looking and making those connections through visuals and through the auditory things that are coming in, but also the warmth, the love, the care. So I think it's just one of those amazing holistic ways that we can start developing our children.
Very true. Thank you very much, Caroline. Now, I'd like to show a video here. Let us see this first.
Down at the bottom of the deepest pool.
I'm really sorry, you're breaking up, Manobina. I'm not quite sure what you said.
Okay. I just wanted to show this video. Can you all see this? Can you hear me, Jayne?
Yes, very good.
Okay, and can you see the video as well, Caroline?
I can see the video, but I can't actually hear it. The sound is breaking up my end.
Down at the bottom of the deepest pool, in the corner of the rock pools, all that could be seen were two sharp pincers and two black eyes. And then out walked Charlie Crab. Now, Charlie Crab doesn't walk forwards. He doesn't walk backwards. He walks sideways. And then off he went along the bottom of the deep blue sea to find his two friends, Horace the hermit crab and Sammy Shrimp.
Okay. So, Caroline, do you have to say something about this video? I think Caroline's internet connectivity is
I'm
a
really
bit...
sorry, Manobina. I didn't hear any of that. Unfortunately, you're breaking up.
Jayne, am I audible to you perfectly?
Yes, and I got to hear that very well as well. So maybe I can jump in and share some
Yes, just let me tell you, he is the author of the book The Adventures of Charlie Crab and Friends, and he is Mr. Williams, Caroline's father.
Okay. Oh, I mean, one of the things that I took away from that, and I think, if you're teachers and parents in this group watching this, is the engagement, the call and respond, right? As teachers, when we read a book or when we tell a story, what we're looking for is using our expression to engage them. And once when we engage them, then once we get their attention, we can extend. We can extend and share the information, um, kind of build not only the attention span of staying engaged, but also connect with them. What he was using was a lot of real life expressions by not having anything in his hands, just using his words and a book. What if there was a group of children there, I could see all of them just either using hand gestures or mimicking. And that's what storytelling gives you. Storytelling brings stories to life. You don't necessarily need a lot of items or objects. It's how you say it and how you engage them. And um, and it was very friendly. It's like granddad reading to you. I mean, and I think that that's what every child wants, right? I mean, it's what you said earlier, not only feeling safe, but being able to connect, giving them the opportunity to respond, and not just asking question. Yeah, loved it. And
Yeah.
love to meet that.
My dad
Yes,
is an educationalist himself, so he loves young people. He loves um, how to teach through stories, because he found most of his career he was teaching through stories to help remember, because like rhymes, repetition, all these things, and a visual will bring a memory, which bring a recall, which will then triangulate your learning and embed that learning in your long-term memory. And that is what we're looking for. And if we can start developing that at such an early age and encourage it, where it's every day they do it because they like it and they want to do it, then learning will become so much more fun and enjoyable. And when you're enjoying something, you learn quicker, you learn where you want to pass on that knowledge, and you want to share it with everybody. And that's what we want in the world, isn't it? We want people to share their knowledge. We want to be educated, but do it in such a way that people get enthused and excited in the same way that we do about things that we feel passionately about.
very true. Yeah. So when Miss Williams was reading the video, my sweet baby came to this room. And you want to know who is it? My fur baby. And she's right here. She's not ready to go. Just a minute. Go, Babu. Go, 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 go. She's so fond of listening to stories. She came here. So sorry about it. Anyways, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your inputs, Caroline and Jayne. So could you please share some key research findings on this topic, especially how it benefits neurodivergent children? Caroline, you have been working with neurodivergent children for decades now. So could you please tell us some research findings about it?
Absolutely. So there's new findings actually in the UK from the book Trust, of all places, that almost a quarter of parents and carers from low-income families or those with SEN, they're only 23% of them who are reading to their children, who are encouraging them to have these experiences because they think they don't understand. They think reading's important, but they're not doing it because they think, oh, they can't sit still for too long, or they don't understand the world in the same way. But I think for me, it's universal, isn't it? Visuals, you can bring out, you can observe whatever you wish to through any picture. So it's that sort of encouragement. It says 20% of families, this is in the UK, obviously I don't have the research from America or from Australia, which again are big indicators in the world today. But 20% of families said they don't read to their children because of lack of time. So we all know when
Yeah.
you've got neurodiverse children, when you've got children with SEN, they're tiring. They, they're constantly needing something. They're constantly needing support. They're constantly asking questions or wanting something or, not quite sure about something. And so that mental pressure and that pressure that you put on yourself as a parent or as a carer, you're there going, oh, I couldn't possibly have that time because it's going to be too much hassle and I've got this to do and I've got that to do and I've got this to do. But research, again, the Book Trust in the UK, are saying that taking that 5 minutes builds confidence. It grows cognitive and physical and social and emotional growth. It develops the brain. It also shows that they have 4 times more input and outcomes at GCSE or exam level by age 16 than those who don't get read to at an early age. So, this research is like showing start early is so important. You can't start too early. Just even sitting with a child on your lap with a book where they could just turn the leaves of the pages, that interaction, it is all so important to development in all aspects, not just education, all aspects for life. We all need to be able to survive in the world today. Going to school is just a small part of it. They have to get, young people have to learn all these different cultures, all these different languages, all these different experiences, and then be able to manage that and go out into the world and become young adults themselves. And we are educating the future. We are the future of our countries. If we don't teach them correctly, if we don't teach them well, then we're not going to have a world in which we all want to live and enjoy. So it's our responsibility as parents and carers to do the very best we can from the earliest of ages to enjoy reading, even if it's picture books, just so that social, economic, academic, the whole persona of a person grows through reading.
Yeah, your voice is coming intermittently. Actually, maybe Jayne, is this the same at your end?
No, we could hear most parts of it. I think it's quite clear from my side.
All right. So there is a question from a viewer here. Please share some techniques to develop reading habit in children. So, Jayne, if you would like to answer this.
So I want to say that building on what Caroline said, it's empowerment, right? Is getting the enthusiasm for learning, is getting the enthusiasm and thirst for knowledge. So when we say techniques, the first technique I think is to be a storyteller. All of us, and regardless of what our careers are, we need the technique of learning how to tell a story. When you go for a job interview, you're not going to tell them the degrees that you have. You have to tell a story about yourself and why they should employ you. So I think we start with that from a very young age. You don't really need very expensive resources, depending on where you are, which circumstances you are in. I have worked with kids in very rural areas, in very poor social economic backgrounds, and I've met the best storytellers in these situations. Sticks and stones can also be used to tell a story. Let me tell you that. And some of these stories have been quite amazing. So it's about the process, it's about the engagement, the connection, and also ultimately, right, with every storytelling, what is the message? What is it that you
Yeah.
are wanting to share, or you hope to hear? So there's two parts to this. In all of us who are working in SEN, sometimes when we're telling a story, but we're also wanting to kind of know what is it that they have understood about this, or And then with some of the other children who have other challenges, you're also trying to connect with what are their fears and their anxiety. So there's always there are multiple reasons and ways of what storytelling can give you. So there's no one set. Transfer of knowledge is the very basic, but I think storytelling can be used to actually connect with children at a very deeper level. And for parents and educators, I think um, even sharing about family, if you live in different parts of the world, and today the world is so diverse, we're all not at the same place at the same time, but you can use stories to connect. So I think that's the power today of
Yeah, very true.
storytelling.
Thank you very much, Jane. And Caroline, could you please provide some examples or anecdotes where you have seen the impact of reading aloud on neurodivergent children's literacy development? Most of our viewers
So
are either
I guess,
parents of divergent children. That's why I'm asking these questions. Yeah.
sorry, can you just repeat that one for me, Manobina? Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So, could you please give us some anecdotes or examples where you have seen the impact of reading aloud on neurodivergent children's literacy development?
So, okay, I'd love to. So, for example, I'm going to use the book as a brilliant example because in our family, neurodivergency is quite common. And so sometimes young people find it really difficult to express themselves or connect with other people on a social level. So the book, the Charlie Crab books, it says there's repetition in it. And so within the repetition, there's also really easy actions, 2 sharp pinches and 2 black eyes. So neurodivergent children are incredible at remembering things. So at the end of the book, for example, they'll say, all that can be seen were, and then the neurodivergent children will come up and go, 2 sharp pinches, 2 black eyes. So that they actually feel as if they're belonging, they feel as if they're taking part, they feel part of the book and feel as if they have something to offer and that they can remember. So it's really exciting for them. So anything that has that repetition, anything that they can recall and say, can you remember, then that helps that that long-term and short-term memory, but to embed it in that long-term memory, you need that repetition over and over. And if neurodivergent children feel safe and secure, and it happens again and again and again, they then feel it's okay, I know that, and I can move on. So through those stories and by learning and repeating those stories, they can also learn that further on in their education, it can be referred back to. When you were younger, we read you stories. Do you remember you did the actions? Well, we're going to do different actions to our sons. 3 plus 2 is 5. Can you show me? Can you tell me? And then they're building on those schemas. They're going, oh, I remember that from my story time. And then they don't feel scared. They're not afraid of the unknown. They're building on things that they already feel confident in. And for neurodiverse people, as you well know, it's all about enabling them to feel safe in their environment so that they can grow and develop in their neurodiverse world, to then actually feel as if they belong in the world with us. And that's what we all want at the end of the day.
Exactly. And they must see different characters in the storybooks which represent diversity, actually. So they can see themselves in characters. That is also important, I guess. What is your opinion about it?
I think,
Jayne?
yeah, in a connection to real life.
Within the environment, you find different characters. Look at us 3. How diverse are we? But
yeah.
Sorry. We're all diverse. We're very, but we. Oh, you can't hear.
And now we can hear. Yeah,
Oh,
now I
God.
can hear. Yeah.
So I think yeah, what Caroline is saying is very much resonates with what all
Disappeared.
teachers in the classroom do, is trying to connect to real life, right? Because
Yeah.
our children are very visual learners, and when they can connect, and when we encourage participation and we use expressive language and reading, we then build this repetitive model where they are comfortable to try it out. You may not get it at the first attempt when you're working with neurodivergence, but when you try and encourage, and just by the way that Caroline was expressing, that's how you would read a book. Sometimes you just don't need a book as well, right? It's how you tell a story, it's your intonation, it's your expression. So I
Absolutely.
think it's very much modeling
Yeah.
for them, and creating
Oh,
this
yeah,
love for stories and reading.
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
And visuals in books also play a significant role in supporting vocabulary acquisition. What do you think, Jane? How do visuals help with understanding tricky words, particularly for neurodivergent children?
Oh, visuals, I think uh, reinforces what you're trying to say, because again, when you work with neurodivergence from a very diverse group, like in Singapore, we're a melting pot. In our school, we have children from like 20 different countries, so visuals definitely help. We have students who come in who are non-English speakers, and you're reading a story in English. Well, you can read the story, but if you have visuals, it actually helps them understand the story better, so that they don't take themselves away. So it's about using visuals to engage and to ignite an interest, to actually stay at task, stay and join in. So I think it's the multimodal learning as well, not just telling a story with the book, but sometimes using
Mhm.
visuals. Choosing the right book, I think, also helps. Reading your class, reading your child, understanding that uh, what is the right book. Size of the book matters. I trained as a preschool teacher in my first career, so I'll say you can't read a book this size to a group, right? You need to have a book that is of a decent size that everyone can see, and they're not like so stressed in trying to see what you're trying to show them. So little things like that, because the transition is to independent living. You're using visuals, and I think all reading programs also encourage that. Ultimately, we're trying to work towards print carries meaning, right? It's a life skill. Why you need to
Yeah.
read is because it helps you live, right, better, and empowerment.
And this book has very interesting visuals. Caroline, Amelia, right? Who's the illustrator here for this book? She has done an excellent job, I must say. And
Oh, that's
one,
fantastic.
yeah. And Caroline, I have one more thing to one more thing is there in my mind. How can inclusive illustrations and diverse characters help neurodivergent children see themselves in stories and feel represented?
So the wonderful thing about stories and about books, and especially the book Charlie Crab and the Adventures of Charlie Crab,
Mhm.
if you can see the characters on the front, we have a crab, we have a hermit crab, and we have Sammy Shrimp, who's over here. All very, very different, but the best of friends. And for neurodivergent children, they see the world differently. They think they're right and everybody else around them is wrong. But what they actually does by having these stories is to show it's okay to be different. In fact, the way that one person thinks is really important to the growth and development of one of the other characters, because we all bring something to this world emotionally, spiritually, physically, and we all have really lovely gifts to share with each other to help us become better people ourselves. So within the characters in any story, especially neurodivergent children, they will be able to see that Charlie and Sammy and Horace are all really, really different, but they're friends. And what do friends do? They look after each other. How do we look after each other? And for neurodivergent children, sometimes they need to be taught these things because they don't understand what a good friend is. They don't understand what being kind can always sometimes mean, because those social cues that neurotypical children pick up instantly and through body language need to be taught. But to do that through stories, it doesn't sound aggressive. It isn't something that you're wrong and everybody else is right. It's about accepting differences and saying, I can do it like this, but it's just as good for you to do it like that because we get to the same place. And that's okay. And to have that in a story, you don't feel threatened. You don't feel as if you're being pointed out. And my dad, who wrote these stories, as you know, he said to us that as children, and we're talking over 50 years ago, and I still remember him lying on the landing with his hands behind his head and his knees up, going down at the bottom of the deepest sea. And we'd all be like, oh my goodness, in the corner of the rock pools. And we'd get excited. And 50 years on, we still love it. We still feel passionately about it. And we're like, oh, what's Charlie going to do today? What's Horace going to get up to? And is Sammy going to get himself into all sorts of mischief? For neurodiverse children, those stories are learning tools, that they're learning what it's like for those social skills that they need to build, about how to be a good friend, about helping others, and the importance of friendship. And also facial expressions. They don't always understand facial expressions. So you tell them, oh, you don't look very happy today. No, actually, I'm really cross. And when you've got these facial expressions, they see it. And then they can make that connection. They can see it visually. And they'll be like, oh, I've got it. That face, if somebody makes a face like that, that means they're cross, or that means they're surprised. And so all of these skills build self-confidence, self-esteem, and gives them that I can attitude. I can do this. I can grow and learn. I can be a good friend. I can move forward in my learning. And, from a storybook, from just Babes in Arms, the tone. I don't know if you've ever seen Three Men and a Baby. It's an American film. And he was talking to this little baby, and he's going, and the boxer got him with a right hook right across his face, and the man fell to the floor. And it wasn't the fact that it was a story about boxing to a babe in arms. It was the intonation. It was the care. It was the quiet voice. It was the eye contact. And that's the bit that is just as important as the story, the intonation, the body language. But for neurodiverse children, that is sometimes very scary and not something that they understand. So the sooner we can build it in, or understand whether they want to sit by themselves and listen, sit in a corner and listen, or listen to it orderly, then we're learning about their diversity and meeting that need with them in a happy, joyful way, without going, you're different, you got to do it like this. You're different, you can't do it like everybody else. That is so not true. As adults, we have to meet that need. We are the responsible ones. So observe, see the child, know what works for them, and moderate accordingly. So for me, through stories, it's just such a special way of teaching our children greater vocabulary, visual expression, the kindness, the love, and just lifelong skills that we all need to learn over time.
So nice. Yeah. Very true. So there are a few questions as well. As a psychologist, how can I encourage a mobile addict neurodivergent for reading book?
So I don't think it's necessarily, it's about that joy of reading to begin with. So if you've got an adult or somebody who's not really into holding a book, just let them hold it. It's a sensory thing as well. Smell it, look at it, flick through it, find a back of a package, find a pen, find a packet of crisps or a biscuit thing. On the back, there will be writing, there'll be things and information, and it's that link between life and story. So it's that connection to reality, and that's where everybody needs to feel connected in a non-aggressive way. So it's again knowing what works for each individual to be able to meet that need in a slightly outside the box situation to encourage. I find audiobooks are really useful in a lot of these cases because they can stop and start when they feel overwhelmed. And when they've sometimes too much noise overwhelms a neurodivergent young person to the point where they just can't manage, and they will manifest in other ways. So to have the opportunity to have headphones to listen, sometimes that sensory earphone is not a good thing either. So again, I think it comes with knowing the child or knowing the person so well that you know sensory what works for them and when to be quiet and when to speak.
I can jump in and give another strategy. So what we do is we set up like a reading station where we have the headphones and the books, audiobooks available, so that it's they're taking a risk because it's something that they're not used to, but they're starting. We're introducing it to them. So when you have a listening station, whether when it's a therapy or whether it's in a small classroom or one-on-one, I think that's a very safe way, respecting the fact that it is a risk that they're taking. It's getting out of their comfort zone. Having the book and having an audio version also helps them connect. So it works beautifully in some of our settings as well.
Yeah. One more question for dyslexia. I think there comes a time when a child has to become an independent reader. A student with dyslexia may find it difficult to read. Can you talk about a few strategies to help?
Yeah, and I think we're going back to the importance of visual. A child with dyslexia, and it can manifest in quite a few different ways. So sometimes when they're trying to read independently, sometimes an overlay of a different hue or a different color might stop the letters from moving around if the dyslexics find it difficult to actually keep the words on the page, so to speak. So an overlay is sometimes really good. I would say space your wording. So for me, just if I've got somebody who has dyslexia and there's quite a big piece of text that I want them to read, I will cover over the majority of that text and just keep that top line highlighted so that they can focus just on that one line. And by doing that and not doing, only ask them if they're quite significantly dyslexic, they are going to get tired really quickly because the visual stress that they're going to experience, it can get quite overwhelming quite quickly. So I would say keep the text as short as possible and then encourage that 2 to 5 minutes every single day. I know you don't like it. I know you find it difficult, but trust me, with repetition and the more you do it, and research shows the more you do it, if you did it 5 minutes every single day, you will be a better reader than somebody who does an intervention 1 hour a week. And, something like that is so incredibly important because even if they are reading the packet of cornflakes packet at breakfast, they're reading, they're engaging, they're scanning, they're looking at the world around them and taking in life. They're not narrowing themselves to me, my life, and my little bubble that I work within.
Yeah, I think choice of books can influence a neurodivergent child's interest in reading. So, how should parents select books that are both visually engaging and inclusive? There's a question.
Well, I
And in go on, Jane.
now I was just gonna say, starting with interests and what
Yeah.
they enjoy and what they like. In the work that we do, many like dinosaurs. So, starting with something they enjoy would encourage them to read, right? It's not what you want them to read. Is You want to teach them to read. So I think going with their interest definitely plays has a very positive impact.
It's also really important to remember a neurodivergent young person very frequently, and I would say more than 70% it has been proven that they like fact rather than fiction. They like to know that they want to find the detail, they want to go into greater depth. And so if one of my students loves sharks. So all my literacy, I build the comprehension I build around sharks, and any science we build around sharks and how their cycle of life and their cycle, because the interest, you grab a neurodivergent person's interest and they will give you the best piece of work you would hope to see as an educator, because they go into such great depth. So again, it's about relationship, it's about knowing your neurodivergent student. And so when you're picking a book, if you're picking a book from when they're really, really tiny, it's I would recommend things with small amount of text and lots of pictures if they're very, very young. Don't go for heavy text, don't go for squirrely text, go for nice, simple, straightforward, using, I'd say, the first 100 keywords that you could find online. And so then you're actually building vocabulary as well as looking at the pictures. A lot of the time on the blurb, it will tell you what the purpose of that book is. And so if you're looking at purpose, think if you're teaching, you'll have a project that you're doing, or you'll have an idea that you would like to develop further and get their ideas in. So when you're looking, high interest, and then if they're low ability, look for smaller amounts of text that they can then describe verbally. A lot of our neurodivergent children are very articulate and they have an incredible vocabulary. So to be able to give them that image and then verbally talk about it is as good as just a text with pictures.
Yeah. And what about repetition? As teachers, we always say that repetition is a key factor in building literacy skills. So why is repetition important, and how does it aid to recall and processing, especially for neurodivergent children? Would you like to answer, Jane?
Well, I guess repetition is one. It's also giving them a memory reinforcement,
Yeah.
confidence, and I think we are slowly trying to build the vocabulary, right? So the ultimate goal is not to give too many words, so that they get overwhelmed. When you start with a few words and you build up on it, and like any good reading program, right, it starts with the high frequency words, and you start with 100, right, and then you go into tricky words and stuff like that, and I think you're basically scaffolding the learning.
Yeah.
I think when you work with neurodiversion, one of the things that uh, we have to be very aware of is the pace that they're going, because too
Mm.
much too soon just kills the love for learning, right? The love for reading, the love for everything. And I think I know that if there are parents in this session, that the intent is good, right? But what you want to go is making sure that there is empowerment and confidence, and the children are not performing. So reading is not performing for someone. I think sometimes we make the mistake and say, well, what did you learn at school? Read the book for me. Or that's not what it is. It's a sharing of information. It's a life skill. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, so it's not how much you know, how fast you know. It's it's kind of taking little steps, but very confident step. And I think, I totally agree with Caroline. When you work with neurodivergent, you really have to go with their interest. Sometimes it's not about having the most fancy reading program, but using their interest and teaching them to read. So it's the differentiated teaching, right? So
Yeah, very true. And I've seen this as well, that when they learn words, when I was talking about repetition, so when neurodivergent children and young people learn words and ideas over and over, they feel more sure of themselves, and it makes them
Absolutely.
better at uh, talking and feeling good about what they know. And this helps them make friends and feel less worried. It also shows that how they learn is okay, making them feel good about themselves. So maybe that is the reason we keep repeating. And yeah, that's the way
But we
we
all need
go.
repetition, don't we, Marabina? We all need
yeah.
repetition. How many of us get told something
Exactly.
and we've got it forever? The more people tell us that it actually sparks that, oh, I have heard that before. Where did I heard that before? And it takes time. The human brain takes time to hold the information. So if you repeat it and repeat it, they say to remember somebody's name, a great technique is to say it 3 times as soon as you meet them, and then you're more likely to remember. So when researchers are telling you these things, it's so important to listen because they've done all the research. So if you want them to remember something, well, it's like spelling, isn't it? When you're reading and blending and trying to build up words, and they shove a word in that doesn't have any phonic sense whatsoever, like said, and they're like, well, it's SED, isn't it? Everybody knows said. And you're just like, well, actually, no, in the English language, which is really a tricky language to learn, they've decided to put an AI, which normally says A in it. So now, but it's, in this particular word, it says eh. So the whole concept of language is vast. So we need to repeat. I also put in things like silly ants in dresses to help you remember that that's how you spell said. So mnemonics are like another really, really good way of, another word. It's normally because, isn't it? Big elephants can always understand small elephants. Just a way to never eat cake, eat salad sandwiches, and remain young. All of these were things that we do, these rhymes that we use, and we repeat them to give us the trigger to remember and bring that from that in the back of your brain right to that thinking brain right at the front to go, oh yeah, I remember that bit. But we all need repetition. And so the more we repeat at a younger age, the more likely it is to embed in that long-term memory, which means they will build on it and feel confident, and their self-esteem will grow because they feel safe and okay about, I know what's coming next because they're going to repeat the same thing. So then they get excited. And to be excited in learning is the best way to learn, in my opinion.
Yeah, one more question here, Caroline. For the older children, I have observed that if the new or unfamiliar words in the story are introduced to the children before reading the story aloud, it really helps. This word study exercise can be done through various examples of word usage, illustrations, or visuals. What is your take on this?
Absolutely. She's absolutely got that spot on. And another way to sort of like do this, we call it pre-tutoring, especially with neurodiverse children, is actually possibly have the new word or the meaning of the word and the simplistic version of the word, and then get them to match it up. So that again, you're saying the word, he said, well, he didn't. He shouted, no, he didn't. He sang, no, he didn't. He screeched. And having all that different richness of the same word coming through in a pre-tutoring session, again, will give them the confidence to give new vocabulary a go. And so, by highlighting it and saying, oh, I found a word that, so in the book, I've tried to use, instead of he shouted, I put he hollered. And the reason I used hollered is a word that not a lot of young people will have come across. And so you can link that to a simple word like shout, and say, you broadened your vocabulary. You've got another word to say shout. So yeah, I totally agree. Poetry, singing songs, nursery rhyme, music. We sing the times tables. Why do we sing times tables? Because it's easy to remember the tune, and if you remember the tune, you then remember the words. Hey presto, put the two together, you know your times tables, and perhaps you can sing. But it's all of these things. It's all of the different ways of learning that, it's really important to bring many different things into one place to teach the
Yeah,
same thing, to enable everybody to have a go at something.
exactly. And one more question that came to my mind is stories can have a profound impact on how children view the world. How do
Oh, yeah.
stories help young people feel safe and secure? So, in your opinion, Jane and Caroline, both of you, please.
Do you want
I
to?
think well, for me, I think in a school setting, and understanding the developmental levels of the kids, you don't want to paint a picture where the world is, I mean, the world is a scary place, but they don't need to know that when they're 3 and 4. When they're
Yeah,
that little, you want them to be excited, you want them to try everything, you want them to be happy. So I
sure.
think
Mm.
how we present it is very important. Giving them empowerment, as you tell the story, as you tell them their role, you tell them how they can, how it affects them. I think it's very important. The intent may be good, but I think you really have to, with neurodivergence, you really need to understand how they're going to process the information. Even the simplest story could be understood quite differently if it's not told
Yeah,
correctly, right, in the way that they're ready to receive them. And I think that's something that we pay a lot of attention to. Something as simple as poverty, right?
Mhm.
When you tell that to even a 5-year-old, neurotypical 5-year-old, you have to be so careful so that that child doesn't think that he's eating too much and he has to stop eating because someone else does not have enough to eat. So I think we have to be very mindful of their processing power.
great.
Just because
Yeah,
someone is very good and very articulate does not mean that they are understanding everything.
understanding.
um,
Yes,
That is the
I,
key.
I absolutely 100% agree with Jane. And what she, replay that, re, recap. Go and listen to what she's just said again, because that is so important. You, we have to be so mindful. We have to be careful. We have to think really carefully about how these young people are learning and when to give them the information that they need. So a lot of the time, again, with stories, or there are a lot of books out there that, can deal with bereavement, can deal with some really sensitive areas that as parents we find really difficult to talk about with our young people, because we don't know how far to go, what we need to say. And again, those stories can be really good, but in the same token, if you haven't looked at that book yourself, if you haven't gone over what is written and the content in it, you can find yourself in a very challenging place to explain things and not to put fear into our young people. So I think again, it's so important what Jane had to say. To do rewind and re-listen to what she's just said.
Yeah. But Caroline, now since we don't have much time left, it's almost an hour. Could you share an extract from your book that illustrates whatever we have discussed today?
Oh my goodness, I would love to read a page. So let me have a little look. Oh, actually, yes. Okay, here we go. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. I'm sorry I can't show you the page at the same time, but I would if I was reading it to you.
Which page is
Suddenly,
that?
a commotion above their head. Oh no! Am I okay?
Yeah. Okay, you can start reading. I will maybe.
Suddenly a commotion. Suddenly, a commotion above their heads made the three friends look up. It's one of those boats humans use, whispered Charlie Crab from behind the rocks. Other strange noises followed, which kept getting louder and louder. So again, here we go. We're going, a commotion. What does commotion mean? Is that what who can tell me what the word commotion means? Can you link it to another word? They're talking about whispered, Charlie. So they're talking about, he said it really, really quietly, but actually the word whispered is a new piece of vocabulary. So what I've tried to do is like just use 3 or 4 new words in each of the books so that the young people build on it, and then in other books that follow, it will have whispered again and commotion again, so that they're linking it and remembering it from the time before. And other strange noises followed, kept getting louder and louder. So now you're bringing it. Oh, so at the back of the book, like Manobina is showing you, all through the story, there are questions that you can ask young people. And when you start questioning them to see what they can remember, you can then start actually seeing what they can recall and what thing they're like, oh, I don't know, shall we go back? And again, there's the repetition, you go back. So in these stories, they all start the same. So it all starts and finishes the same, so that the young people think, oh, it's time for a story. So down at the bottom of the deepest sea, in a corner of the 2 sharp pinches and 2 black eyes. And then at the end, it says, it's time to go home, sang the 3 friends together. And then it says, and all that can be seen were 2 sharp pinches and 2 black eyes. So they know when the beginning of the book is, they know when the end of the book is, and the bit in the middle is the bit that they can enjoy and try and remember, because they know at the back of the book, Caroline's put some questions and so vocabulary questions in the back to see what they can remember. So it's that engagement as well. It's that, oh, I'm going to answer the questions. I can do this. I can do this. So just before I go, I do want to say I have 10 copies, signed copies by me, that I would like to give to 10 of your listeners, Manobina. All they have to do is email me. I'm going to say this really slowly so that the 10 can write it down as quickly as they like. And all they have to say is, reading is great. And then send it to my email, which is caroline@charliecrab.co.uk. And the first 10, I will message you back, ask for your name and addresses, and I will send you a free copy of my book.
Thank you. Could you please write down this on the comment sections, if possible? And can I tell you one thing, Caroline? I actually, after reading this book, I wrote a review, but I couldn't post it anywhere because it was not taking, Amazon was not taking any review from India. They had a page from the US and the UK. So would you like me to read it for you?
Oh my goodness. Could you write it in the messages and then I can copy and paste it across?
All right. So a short one. The Adventures of Charlie Crab and Friends is an enchanting underwater tale that invites young readers to dive into the world of Charlie and his pals, authored by Alan Williams and Caroline Hill, and beautifully illustrated by Amelia Williams. This book promised an ocean of adventure and discovery. what sets this book apart is its interact. Oh my God, there are many comments coming up actually. So what sets this book apart is its interactive approach, designed to engage young readers at every turn, with consistent story structures that encourage participation, whether being read to or reading independently. Children can immerse themselves fully in the narrative. Beyond its entertainment value, the book is also carries a heartfelt message about facing fears and overcoming obstacles, making it an ideal tool for boosting children's confidence. Overall, The Adventures of Charlie Crab and Friends is a delightful inaugural installment in what promised to be an exciting series.
Oh, thank you, my friend. That
Thank
thrills my
you
heart. Thrills my heart.
for sending the book to me, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I was after you that let's have a program, have a session on Let's Talk Inclusion about it. So there are people who have already started writing in the comment section. So I will post your email ID here so that everyone can write to you an email.
Lovely.
All right. Thank you very much, Caroline, and thank you very much, Jayne, for coming here today. And as we wrap up, I'd like to ask you to share one final piece of advice for parents and carers on fostering a love of reading in their neurodivergent children. Jayne, let's start with you.
I would say diversify your reading material. There is not just one book that you should read, or you shouldn't read the book that some other parents are reading. Choose a book that's going to interest your child.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Jayne. And Caroline?
I'm just going to say, remember that children's brains experience the most growth in the first 5 years of their lives. So using books, stories, rhymes, and focus for play and talking and singing will really extend far beyond childhood.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jayne and Caroline, for your invaluable insights. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Keep fostering a love of reading and inclusivity in your homes and communities. Until next time, goodbye. Thank you for
Bye.
joining Let's Talk Inclusion.
Bye.
Bye.